Max Verstappen and George Russell shared a very awkward moment on the podium at the Australian Grand Prix. These two haven't exactly been best pals since their fiery fallout at the end of the 2024 season, and it seems that tempers are still flaring in 2025. Here's what happened. Max Verstappen and George Russell have admitted they haven't even spoken since last season. The season-opening Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne saw both drivers delivering stellar performances to land on the podium for Red Bull and Mercedes, respectively. Verstappen, a four-time world champion, wrestled his way to second place despite his Red Bull looking like a step behind the McLarens. In fact, he came within a whisker of snatching victory in the chaotic conditions. Meanwhile, Russell had a strong day in his Mercedes, securing third place while his teenage teammate, 18-year-old rookie Kimi Antonelli, impressed with a P5 finish, helping Mercedes kick off the season as the second-best constructor. But then came the cool-down room, where things got awkward. With the top three drivers reviewing the race highlights together, Lando Norris, the 2025 season opener winner, was happily chatting away with Verstappen. While this was happening, Russell was mostly left to nod along and throw in the occasional comment whenever he could squeeze one in. And as for direct interactions between Verstappen and Russell, they barely even acknowledged each other, making it pretty clear that their 2024 tensions hadn't exactly disappeared. During post-race interviews, Verstappen was asked if the bad blood had been settled. With a smirk, he said, "It's shockingly bad," before going on to add that it's all good. Whether he meant it or not is another story. If you remember, Toto Wolff spent the entire 2024 season rolling out the red carpet for Max Verstappen, making it no secret that he wanted the reigning world champion in silver. But fast forward to 2025, and suddenly, that dream pairing seems dead in the water. At the F1 season opener, Toto revealed that Verstappen is no longer on Mercedes' radar. So, for the time being, it looks like a Verstappen-Russell super team at Mercedes is officially off the table. "We need to concentrate on our driver lineup. I don't flirt outside if I'm in a good relationship," Wolff said in Melbourne. So at the moment that a move for Verstappen is not on any radar. "I don't plan to shift my concentration away from these guys, and we'll make sure that George has some visibility very soon, or has a contract very soon." The tension between Max and George isn't the only controversy that has carried over to the 2025 season. The drama over flexible rear wings in Formula One is far from over, and the FIA has just added more fuel to the fire with yet another round of rule changes. Barely a day after the dust settled on the Australian Grand Prix, motorsport's governing body dropped the bombshell. New regulations are coming in the next two races to crack down on what's being dubbed a Mini DRS. This hot topic has been stirring the paddock for months, and now the FIA is stepping in with a fresh technical directive just in time for this weekend's Chinese Grand Prix. But another tweak is set to follow for the Japanese Grand Prix, meaning teams will have to stay on their toes as the rulebook keeps evolving. The FIA is tightening the screws, literally, on rear wing flexibility, with a major clampdown coming into effect from the Japanese Grand Prix onward. Right now, teams get a 2mm leeway in the rear wing movement tests, but that's about to shrink drastically to just 0.5mm. However, for this weekend's Chinese Grand Prix, there's a bit of a grace period. Since the decision came on such short notice, an extra 0.25mm of wiggle room will be allowed. Why the sudden crackdown? Well, the FIA wasn't thrilled with what they saw in video footage from Albert Park. Rear wing still flexing a little too much for comfort. And while every car technically passed the Melbourne tests, the governing body clearly isn't taking any chances. So, for the teams, it's time to make sure those wings are rock solid, because the FIA is watching very closely. McLaren certainly turned heads at the season opener, and not just because of their pace. Their rear wing design had people talking. The noticeable gap between the upper part of the wing and the lower flap raised eyebrows, fueling suspicions that they were making the most of a very flexible setup. According to Racing News 365, running a flexible rear wing to its full potential can shave off as much as 3 to 4 tenths per lap. That's a serious advantage. It allows teams to crank up the downforce for better cornering while barely sacrificing top speed, leading to stronger performance and reduced tyre wear, a winning combo. But with the FIA's new crackdown, the tide could be turning in favour of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. The reigning champ struggled to keep up with the McLarens in Melbourne, particularly as his intermediate tyres wore out in just 8 laps. Meanwhile, McLaren kept the hammer down at top speed while Verstappen's pace faded. With stricter regulations now in play, McLaren may have just lost one of their biggest aces, while Red Bull and Verstappen could be the biggest winners of the FIA's latest move. Starting this weekend in China, McLaren faces a critical balancing act. With the FIA tightening the leash on rear wing flexibility, the team will have some tough choices to make. Dialing back the flex will have a ripple effect, tyre wear could spike, maintaining top speed will get trickier, and cornering performance might take a hit. On top of that, the car's overall balance could become a headache, leaving many wondering just how much this new technical directive will shake things up for McLaren. Meanwhile, Red Bull could be sitting pretty. Unlike McLaren, they didn't run a rear wing with an opening in Australia, meaning they might have already been playing by the new rules. If that's the case, Verstappen and company could be in prime position to capitalise while McLaren scrambles to adjust. In other Red Bull developments, Liam Lawson's first race as a full-time Red Bull driver didn't exactly go according to plan at the Australian Grand Prix. But if you think Helmut Marko is ready to slam the gavel, think again. He's reserving judgment until Lawson has at least 3 to 5 races under his belt with the senior team. After 11 outings with Red Bull's junior squad over 2 seasons, Lawson earned his big promotion for the 2025 championship. But make no mistake, his mission was crystal clear before the season even began: help Max Verstappen secure the titles. Unfortunately, race 1 didn't quite deliver on that goal. Still, it's early days, and with Marko watching closely, Lawson has a few more races to prove he's up to the task. Lawson's Australian Grand Prix weekend quickly unravelled, starting with a rough qualifying session at Albert Park. A scruffy moment at turn 10, followed by a slide at the penultimate corner, forced him to abort his final flying lap, leaving him stranded in 18th on the grid. With rain looming for race day, Red Bull threw a curveball, fitting Lawson's car with a different spec rear wing and rear beam wing in hopes of salvaging something. But in the end, it was all for nothing. The New Zealander's race ended with a crash, adding his name to the DNF list alongside fellow rookies Isaac Hadjar, Jack Doohan, and Gabriel Bortoleto. As the rain worsened and drivers scrambled for intermediate tyres, Lawson gambled on slicks and lost, spinning out before he could even see the checkered flag. After the race, Lawson reflected on the tough debut, admitting that, "We took a chance, hoping that at least half of the track would stay dry. We knew that Sector 3 was bad, but we thought that Sector 1 would stay a bit drier, so we carried on. Unfortunately, it was bucketing down with rain. At that point, to be honest, I'd backed out of pushing because it was so wet. I was just trying to stay on the track, but obviously it's not ideal." But while all eyes were on Helmut Marko, waiting for one of his signature sharp-tongued reactions, the Red Bull Motorsport advisor was surprisingly unbothered by Lawson's rough debut. Rather than handing out one of his infamous brutal assessments, Marko remained measured, holding back any snap judgments. It seems the veteran talent scout is willing to give Lawson time, at least for now. "He wanted to show what he can do," Marko said, "and unfortunately that went wrong. We have to let him cool down a bit now and observe his development over the first 3 to 5 races." Christian Horner is also standing by his rookie, making it clear that Lawson's late race crash wasn't down to inexperience. It was Red Bull's gamble that didn't pay off. Horner insists that the call to leave Lawson out on slicks as the rain intensified was a strategic roll of the dice, and unfortunately it came up snake eyes. But despite the setback, the Red Bull boss remains confident that Lawson's development will come with time. "It was a difficult weekend for him," Horner said. "We took a risk of leaving him out because he was outside of the points, and we thought, you know what? Roll the dice, maybe it'll come right." But it was exactly the point, that it started to rain more. So it's difficult to blame him for that last spin. If there was one positive we can take, it's that his pace in the dry was not too bad. Can Liam Lawson turn things around, or is he the wrong person for the job? Let's argue in the comments section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching.